What's going on? We have a very special guest today at the Realtor Spotlight, Mr. Luis Cardenas. We go over freaking politics, capitalism, socialism. We went over his story from Venezuela. We talk about real estate. We talk about being organized, work-life balance, Calendly. Listen to the whole episode. I hope you guys get something out of it, and I'll see you at the next one. What's going on, guys? Another episode of the Realtor Spotlight. We have a veteran, a top producer, and a very good friend, Mr. Luis Cardenas. How are you?
What's up, man? Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on. I've been in the business for a little while. We met how many years ago? Maybe 3 years ago?
3 or 4 summers ago?
Yeah, a little before COVID, I would say. And not only are you somebody that I can look to say that person knows what he's doing, we've also become really good friends. So it's always a good time to sit down and chop it up with you.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember how we met, but
how did we meet?
You put out we're following each other. For a little bit.
My backyard.
You put out barbecue like, hey, this backyard's open, and we're having a couple of friends, and I said, for some reason I said, and I've never done this before, but I said, yeah, I'm gonna come over and chat. From there it was.
You pulled up on the motorcycle.
Pulled up on the bike, and then yeah, we chatted for a little bit, met the dogs, met your friends, met your dad, and talked about bikes.
Yeah.
And then it was all from there.
So what he's referencing, for those of you who don't know, I think it was like when COVID first popped off, and the whole business shut down, and everybody was just scared. Mm-hmm. Everybody was like, I don't know what to do. People in the business and outside of the business are literally just in their homes like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, you know what? I don't know if this is the safest decision, but I'm going to have a barbecue. And we're going to do it all outdoors, and we're going to try to be as safe as possible. But like I'm sick and tired of social distancing, and I need to be around people. Like I feel like that's very important for us as humans. Yeah. So I just put an open invitation out on Instagram, and here pulls up Luis on his motorcycle, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it was one of those things out of the whim, and it worked out. It was good.
And that was a good day too. So I always like to kind of ask people about their experience in business, before I go there. I always like try and figure out like somebody's origin story, because I feel like that's the most interesting thing about people in general, is like we all have different backgrounds, different stories, and those experiences affect us, and we use those experiences in what we do today, right? So let's talk about, like, where are you from originally?
So originally born in Venezuela, and then I came here when I was 13 years old.
Wow.
My father grew up here. He came here when I was very young, did middle school, high school, and then went back. Venezuela used to be famous for being a rich country and a very comfortable country, so people could send their kids to study outside, and then come back and do business or do their career back in the country. Things changed after that, and that's why we came and stay here.
So your dad grew up in America because his parents sent.
Yeah, born over there.
Okay.
And after a little while, they said they all came to go to school here. And then after they were done with school, they went back because things were good over there.
And then he had you.
And then he had me.
13 years later, wasn't so good.
Wasn't so good, and said, I know a place that it's good.
Right.
Let's go back. And he went back. He came back first and stayed here for a year while he was setting up. And then
brought you guys over. And when he was here as a kid or when going through school, was it in New York?
Yeah, Queens.
Cool.
Yeah, I wish I knew exactly where it was, because that's always been one of those things that, the crazy part of the story is after we came 6 months later or 3 months later, my dad was diagnosed with lung cancer.
Oh, shit.
And then soon after that, he passed. So we didn't really get to explore that much of what life was here. We literally were just learning English, going to school, trying to get situated, and then that happens. And so, that, but I never really got to find out exactly what part of Queens he was in or where.
Is there like a Venezuelan spot a part of Queens?
When I came here,
because I know there's like Colombia, there's like neighborhoods where it's like all Colombian. There's neighborhoods where it's like all Dominican. So It's not like
Florida's
that.
like that. There's a lot of Venezuelans, but that's
Yeah.
been over. Like I said before, Venezuela was a good place, so there was a need for people to leave.
Right.
And the other countries have that issue have
Right.
had that issue for many years before Venezuela. So there are migrations and groups of people that actually get together. Now there's a little bit more. But when I came here, there was only 2 Venezuelans. One of the guy who came here, good friend of mine, and then and me.
Are you allowed to leave Venezuela right now?
You can leave, yeah.
You can?
Yeah.
Okay.
They want you to leave.
Right.
They want you to go because
Right.
you're not in the way.
Right.
So.
And it's crazy because I was visiting Aruba, and almost everybody there was like Venezuelan people like trying to get out of Venezuela. And same thing actually in a lot of Latin countries, I would assume, because it's bad over there right
I have
now.
family in a lot of Latin American countries now because
They dispersed. Do you have people still in Venezuela?
Yeah.
And so actually before we get into that, and as you can see, like, it's not all about real estate.
I'm good. I'm good with that background.
I don't want to talk about appraisals and this and that, and and I don't think people want to hear it anymore. So I'd rather talk about this stuff. But before we get into like what's going on in Venezuela right now, talk about your experience coming to this country as a 13-year-old, because you're obviously not alone in that experience. My girlfriend came here, I think, when she was 7. She always talks about like how it was like in school learning English and like, so talk about that a little bit.
So just linking back to how the story actually happened, we were here since August of, I don't even remember the year anymore. I have to look back, but let's say 2001, which is probably the right year. 2001, August, we get here. In December, my father gets diagnosed with cancer. So we've been in school since September, October, November. December, we find out.
Wow.
He passed away in February. When we find out that this is going to happen, my mother pulls my sister and I to a stairwell in the hospital and explains to us, I'm 13, my sister is 10 years old, and explains to us that, that's going to pass away. He's very sick. What do you guys want to do? Because my father spoke English very well because he grew up here. He knew the way.
Wow.
But my mother didn't.
Right.
And we were just learning, so she kind of left it up to us. What do you want to do?
Like, do you want to stay here or do you want to go?
Or you want to go back?
Wow.
So, and my sister and I, without even thinking about it, we're staying.
Wow.
We want to stay. We'll make it work. And
I just got the
that kind of
chills.
shows you within just a few months living here, and we live. There's a lot of Latin American countries where people are very poor. We weren't super poor. We lived in a city that, we lived in a building, we were comfortable. But when we came here, we saw the options and the potential.
Right.
And right away, we knew that we wanted to stay.
I got the chills.
So, yeah, it's pretty freaking awesome. Like, most people don't realize how good they have it here.
Right.
And that's what drives people, usually immigrants, to push hard and be successful in business and become entrepreneurs because they see the potential that other people don't have.
Right.
So
you see opportunity and you realize how blessed you are to even have the opportunity, because in other places, in the places that these immigrants are coming from, there isn't much. Even if you are living okay and you aren't poor, there isn't the ability to improve.
Upward mobility.
Yeah.
There isn't.
And it's funny because some people would make the argument that you don't have that here in America. Like, you don't, there's certain people that they're stuck, just like the people that you're describing. Do you think that's true or not?
No, I think the opportunities are there, but you have to work. That's the caveat. Wherever you go to any Latin American country coming back from here, you go on vacation and they think, oh, you make this much money, 6-figure income. Yeah, but there's also 6-figure expenses, right? We all have them.
Right.
So you have to work hard. The possibility of making the right decisions at the right time and kind of seeking the right guidance gives you the odds into your favor, so you can work the system so that you can grow.
Wow.
So there is opportunity. The opportunity requires you to put in the work.
Amen.
Thank God for that, because otherwise everybody would make it and it would be more difficult.
Right.
The equation is pretty simple.
Right.
The actual putting in the work is the hard part, but
I think they say if there's this and there's the universe shows us this when it comes to everything, not just like monetary success, but like if you took the example that I've heard, if you took if you took everybody's money away, gave everybody $1, that money would still end up in the same people's hands in a longer period, in a long enough period, because it's like it's just a law.
Right.
I don't know what the law is called, but and I'm probably butchering the example, but that like no matter what, in no matter what environment, there's always going to be the outliers that actually put in the work, and everybody will want what the outliers have. But not everybody will put in the work that the outliers do.
I'm not super religious. I believe in God, and we share that together.
Yeah.
But that's even in the Bible, dude.
Right.
Like, I don't know the whole quote and how it works, but God gave each person a token.
Right.
And one guy, the first guy that he goes through the story.
I know this story.
He invested.
Yes, I know this story.
And he went to make money, and the other guy hit it, and the other guy didn't do anything with it.
Right. He just held on to it. One guy hit it, and then one guy invested it, and then God asked them like, what'd you do with this blessing that I gave you?
Yeah. And then
were you a good steward?
And he said, my good son, to the investor.
Right.
So,
So invest in real estate.
Invest.
That's
invest wisely. Invest wisely,
And not only in money, but invest in time and effort in honing your skills. Another thing that and this is kind of off topic, but this conversation is reminding me of it. A lot of people think they're underpaid, but they're just underskilled. It's like you're underpaid because your skills are not valuable.
Right.
No offense to anybody that works any of these jobs, but let's just say I'll use the classic example of McDonald's employee, which I hate this example, and I don't want to disrespect anybody. But you work at McDonald's. Right. You're at the register. How valuable are your skills if or a majority of people can also do your job?
Right.
And a lot of people are upset because they're not being compensated more, but what they have to realize is their skills are not worth being compensated more. And I'm not saying that nobody should. I hope one day we figure out how to eradicate poverty, but based on everything that we're talking about, the laws that we're describing, the example of how expensive are you or how valuable are your skills or not, it almost seems impossible to do because there's always going to be a portion of the population that may say they want it, but don't. Their actions don't reflect that.
And that applies to business, reading, learning, and it also applies to, something as simple as getting to the gym and working out.
Right.
I mean, if you can't get out of bed, you say you want to be in this shape.
Right.
It's as simplest.
Don't hit me with that though. Don't hit me with that.
You do 75 hard. You do that. You put in the work.
I'm thinking today. I'm like, I woke up at 8, didn't go to the gym, got to the office at 10. I'm a miserable bum.
You just finished a 30-day.
Whatever.
Thing. So
whatever.
I mean, you go through cycles like everybody else. I mean, there's sometimes that you gotta let off the gas to let your body rest, and you gotta let off the gas in every single scenario. I do it with business.
Right.
I don't work to my fullest potential.
100% of the time, right?
100% of the time, because in real estate, because to me there are priorities in my life, and my family is one of them. And it's a big part of the pie.
Right.
So in order for me to push 100% all the time requires me to leave some of my other priorities on the side, and I'm not willing to do that.
Right.
So, it's all about a balance, and there's a gray area on that balance, but there is a time to push and a time to rest.
Right.
And I think we all benefit, and we probably are a little bit more efficient when we push because we know we've been rested.
Right. And now, so how do you, that kind of leads us into the topic of work-life balance.
Right.
How do you manage, because for those of you who don't know Lewis, he actually does this, right? He actually sells houses.
Yeah.
So it's not like some social media thing. It's not like, because everybody's a realtor now. Everybody puts it in their bio. But there's like the law that we were describing. He actually does this. So how do you balance everything? Because you have two beautiful girls, you have a wife, you stay in shape because you're doing all these freaking fitness boot camps that you're inviting me to at 6 a.m. on Friday, and I never show up. Like, how do you balance it all? Like, is there any tricks, or is there a mindset or some framework that you use?
You know, it would be impossible without help. That's number one. So, you know, one of the things, and I think it's gone around in social media in general, one of those super viral videos where what's the most important
Decision,
or what's the most important thing that somebody told you in business, and one guy said, marry the right person.
right?
And so that's as simple as it gets. I mean, I can go to my wife, and my wife and I have this thing. Well, first thing that we do, and this is a practical example, have Google Calendar, have a shared Google Calendar
Right.
account where she puts in the birthday, she puts in the personal stuff, the dentist appointments, the doctor's appointments, where I need to be there for school, you know, all the
Right.
things that are necessary for me to be present. And then I also put in there, I have appointments here, open houses, all this
Right.
stuff that needs to happen in order to make the business grow.
Right.
But that shared calendar allows me to book myself in a way that's organized, and
Right.
that I'm not double booking myself. So I don't have a listing appointment at the time that I have a birthday
Dentist
party,
appointment,
which
yeah.
was the
Right.
first listing appointment that I had on my own was on my daughter's birthday.
Right.
And I told my wife, and she looked at me with like a little bit of like,
Yeah,
you know, you're killing
right.
me with this. But she said, go get him and come back, and he'd be at the party. And when I was at the listing appointment, I was 100% at the listing appointment because she released me to go do what I needed to do.
Right.
And then when I was back, I was done with work. And
You got
I was
the listing?
100%. Yeah, I got the listing.
Okay, good.
Yeah, 301
That story wouldn't have been
First Levittown house. Yeah, no, it was. So the list. It was supposed to be a listing appointment, and I told her I'm gonna be in and out in 40 minutes tops.
2 hours.
And they were in 2.5 hours because the guys were like, okay, let's go, let's sign it up. And I sat down and actually took the listing on the spot. It took
Right.
2.5 hours later. I show up to the party. It's halfway there. And she goes, what happened? And I said, I got the listing.
yeah. There's nothing else to talk about.
I mean, we did it, but then again, you know, when you're back to the party, you're 100% at the party.
Right.
So there is that, and we think we had this conversation once before, where I hold that dear to my heart because it's one of those, you know, things that somebody throws at you that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna hold on to that one. But you said you're like a rainmaker.
Yeah.
You remember saying that to me?
Yeah.
And it's true. I can use that and go to my wife and say, look, the next 5-6 weeks are gonna be hard. We got to push.
Right.
Spring market's coming. We got to go.
Right.
And she'll release me and say, okay, as long as I know where you are, like where you are at, not
Right.
where you are specifically, but what season you have to be in, I will take care. I will hold down the fort at home because because you're holding down the business. And so but having that conversation said, I need to push. We
Right.
have this goal. We got to go. I just told my wife, I said, we need 10 listings.
I saw that on your little Instagram note.
Yeah, I told her we need 10 listings. We need 10 listings. We have a goal. We need to do something by the end of the year, and that's what's gonna happen. So I go into this push mode.
Right.
Where
You go out there and you make rain.
But she doesn't know. She doesn't have to wonder why I'm not present so much.
Right.
Or why I'm working to 8, 9 o'clock at night when I have to. It's because
She knows what's going on.
It's time to push.
So you think a big part of work-life balance is choosing the right person?
Yeah, if you have a family, because that's when it gets great, right? You know,
Right.
when should I be home with my kids? You know, is my kids seeing me enough? But I'm leaving them a ton of money. Kids don't care about the money. Kids care
No.
about you being present.
Yeah.
So there's a time and a place for that.
Right.
But if you're not married and you don't have a family, boy, you should be pushing.
There's no
100.
work-life balance?
You should
It's
be
just be
taking
work.
off from
Work,
Saturday
work.
6 to Sunday 9 a.m. That's
Right.
your only time off.
Right.
Because if I got into real estate before I got married, I would probably be a tycoon right now because I wouldn't have anything holding me back from pushing.
Well, it's about like you said, you got to like choose where you spend your time, and like if you really one of the more valuable things that I hired a coach, and one of the more valuable exercises he had me do was like a time audit. And he said, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, I want you to keep track of everything that you do.
Log everything.
Yeah. So not schedule stuff because we're not even there yet.
Mm-hmm.
let's first figure out, because you're talking about how you're so busy and how you don't have time to do this and how are you supposed to manage handling more volume. Let's really, really figure out what you're doing with your time. So from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to sleep, just keep track of it. Every few hours, write down, what you did the past few hours.
Right.
And what I found was I wasn't as busy as I thought.
Yeah.
And you have to, time management and time blocking and scheduling and getting organized when it comes to all of that stuff is second to actually figuring out, like, what are you spending your time on now? Mm-hmm. Like the stuff that isn't scheduled, the stuff that you're just doing, right? Because you can very easily get super reactive in this business. Yeah. And it's a problem, especially with loan officers. So what I found out was I was, speaking to clients maybe 20% of the time, joking around with coworkers 30% of the time, right, and reading emails and doing like stupid busy work that isn't really productive the other however many percent. And we looked at that audit and he said, well, how are you supposed to grow your business? Like, you're not doing anything to grow your business, right? So first you got to figure out like what you're currently doing. Right. Then you could start building systems and frameworks and thought processes on like, okay, Tuesdays I do this, and from 2 to 4 I do this, and getting organized with your calendar and stuff like that. But a lot of people just think they're busy.
And even scheduling that time off, it's healthy.
Right.
That's
yes.
If you're gonna spend 30% of the day, maybe that's a high number.
Right.
But there still should be some percentage of the day where you're letting off to get creative and do what you need to do, but then come back and be more effective and be more proactive.
Right.
So
I'm looking at my calendar right now. I have from 10. I have a 15-minute break from 11:45 to 12. Then I have back-to-backs until 2, and then I have a 3. So there's really like very little white space on my calendar. But that's today. This is like a push day for me. Yeah. Like, I got a lot of shit to do. Mm-hmm. I booked a lot of stuff. Tomorrow, St. Patty's Day, I got jiu-jitsu at 6 p.m. That's it. Right. And so I can be a little bit more reactive, but I schedule that time to do my other stuff because I don't want to book a call at 6 o'clock when I'm really supposed to be in jiu-jitsu, right? So
having a calendar is probably the most
practical use Google,
thing.
Google Calendar.
Google Calendar.
You know what I've been experimenting with as well, and I've been meaning to make a video about this. Calendly. Yeah.
I use it for Calendly is great, and even for us today. So I use Calendly for my rentals. When I have a rental listing, I create a Calendly account. You can let Calendly know you want 50-minute appointments without any breaks in between, with 5-minute breaks in between.
Correct.
So I set up, so I tell Calendly I'm going to be available to show this rental on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, from 5:30 to 7:30.
Right. So they just go in there and book the times.
Yeah, exactly. So exactly like the way you did, go pick your time.
Right.
It takes away from you having to pick their time and do all that busy work. They pick their own time. In your calendar, from 5 to 7:30, it's blocked. Yep. So you have to be at a certain place to meet clients. The other thing that it does is that it constantly reminds you.
Yep.
So it sends a reminder, hey, remember you got this appointment. Yep. Remember you got this appointment. Yep. And sometimes you get to a listing appointment, you're there, and they're telling, oh, we forgot, this calendar completely removes that.
Correct.
Because they put in their cell
phone
number.
Tries to.
Well, some people are, you
just
can't
perpetually
change who
late.
They are.
And that's honestly who I am. Except when it comes to business. If it's anything else besides business, I'm late. That's just because I'm not organized in the personal area of my life, which is a whole nother
a lot of things that happen to me is I don't schedule properly how long it's going to take from me to get from this place.
Yeah.
So if I have
the commute time,
if I have a 12 to 1 commute time is not scheduled, and then I'm running because I didn't.
So so Calendly, what I use it for, I have, I even use it to schedule this today. So I have tons of different events made out. One event is an intro call. So if you introduce me to a client via group text, which I always prefer, I simply reply and I say, hey, grab a time in my calendar that's convenient to you. There's no more like, are you available at 3? No, I'm not available at 3. Okay, what about 6? Well, no, I'm putting the kids to bed at 7 and I need to make dinner. There's no more back and forth conversation. So it limits that. And then like you said, it also, you can set how and when and what it says to remind that person of whatever event they scheduled. Exactly. So I have it set where number one, it texts me when the call is booked. So I know it's on my calendar. Right. Number two is I get a text 30 minutes before. So most of the time, 30 minutes, depending on what event type is being booked, is enough time for me to prepare for whatever I'm about to do. For stuff like this, where it's like, hey, I'm in the studio at Thursday, right, from 12 to 2, but that's the only time. Thursday from 12 to 2. You can't book Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Right. It's just Thursday from 12 to 2. But next week is no good for you that day. It'll allow you to schedule 3 Thursdays from now, exactly, from 12 to 2. Yeah. It has helped me. It has helped me a lot. To Google Calendar. So that's why I switched from. So I used to use Outlook Calendar because that's where we use our email. And there is a way to integrate Calendly with Outlook, but compliance-wise, we couldn't give Calendly access to Outlook because we deal with people's social security numbers. So I completely scrapped Outlook Calendar and like forced myself to learn Google Calendar, which was a pain in the you know what. But it's 100% worth it because now I have that scheduling tool that, number one, it helps me, but it also elevates my customer experience. Of course, which is like 100%. If you can do both, if you can make things more efficient and elevate your customer experience, that's a no-brainer move. Sometimes what business people will try to do is they'll try to implement systems on how to make things more efficient for them, but it actually devalues their customer experience, and that's not good. Make everything more complicated. Correct. You want both, and I learned that. I learned that a few years ago, where it was like I was thinking of ways to help me, but I was actually making the client's job harder, and we never want to add friction to a process. So that's Calendly is a no-brainer move for everybody watching. Hopefully, we get this chopped up into a reel. You got to download it. You got to use it. There's other apps, I'm sure, but that's the one that I use. And there's a free version, and the paid version is basically free anyway. Right. But I know I'm going back a lot, but I do want to talk about it because it is something that I'm interested in. What's going on in Venezuela right now? Completely changing gears. I know we went, but I just remembered I did want to talk about it.
I do follow it because I feel like it's something that. This is complicated because when you come from a country that you were seeing changes happening, and then you saw the progression of how things are changing, and then now I'm a citizen of this country. My kids grew up in this country.
When did that happen officially?
That happened like maybe 6 months ago.
No, it was longer than that.
Maybe a little bit longer, but it feels.
Because I remember you posted it, and I was like, "We're happy to have you."
Yeah,
But go ahead.
I got approval from from everybody.
I was like,
I got approval from.
He's a good one. He's a good one. Go ahead.
So then you start to see patterns, right? And then you're like, wait, the patterns are starting to I've seen these patterns before, and now they're starting to happen here. Wow. And that you start to see, okay, what decisions do I have to make here? Who do I have to follow and all that stuff. And, if this makes it to social media, hey, this is my stance on it. Socialism is bad. It is, it doesn't help. The system hasn't helped any country where it's been implemented. Right. And that's what's happening over there. Right. It's exactly what you said before. When you take every dollar that everybody makes and distribute it amongst everybody, there's going to be lazy people and there's going to be hard workers. Mm-hmm. And those people cannot be corrupt people. There's not going to be. You cannot distribute everybody, because what happens is you suck the life out of the people that create value. They create wealth. Right. And those people that create wealth create jobs, and those people that create jobs not only make money but also employ a bunch of people that grow. And so the whole country is supposed to grow.
I think George Washington said, I may be misquoting it, I think he said, don't chop down somebody else's tree to build somebody else a house, their house or something like that. Like, it's like don't take away from others to that rightfully earned it, right? My thing is, I think it's most people, and there are people who are far extreme that probably aren't thinking this way, but most people, they're just trying to be good, right? They're trying to make everybody better, right? And that's where the thought process of that whole system comes from, which is not bad to have. That's not a bad mindset. Right. However, you kind of have to come back to reality and understand the laws and how the world works, right. And then also play the tape forward a little bit and say to yourself, okay, if we do this, what will happen? Like, what's the cause and effect? I
heard somebody say today, I thought it was so super interesting because I didn't even think about that. So you know the hype about Chat GPT and all that stuff, right? So he was saying how in the future there should be an ability to input into a robot. These are the country's wealth. These are the country's assets. This is how a country can make money from their riches, and these are the expenses that a country has. And then that robot should be able to spit out a system that can be followed in order to make the business grow,
right?
Or the country grow. Because the country, even though there should be a social aspect to the
right.
country,
but it's also a business.
It's a business,
right?
If we don't make enough money,
right,
and we spend too
There's
much
no country.
money,
yeah,
we're screwed,
right?
So.
Yeah.
When you look at it in that sense, you take the emotion out of it, and you know that there has to be a social aspect because there's people falling hard times, and there has to be a system for that.
There has to be a net.
Right. But at the end of the day, that cannot outweigh the survival.
You can't punish
of the
people.
Right. So
and you can't step because and this is where I get, so I'm a capitalist through and through. I think capitalism is the best system we got right now. Are there flaws to it? 100%. Has it been abused? 100%, because that's human nature. Where I get blurry on it, and I'm not talking about healthcare, I'm talking about the pharmaceutical industry. Where I get blurry on it is if everything is driven by profit, there are certain industries that maybe shouldn't be driven by profit. Right? And I'm not talking about the most recent, because I don't want to say the word, because then nobody will see this video. Yeah. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about actually a step, a few decades prior to that, or a decade prior to that, which was the opioid crisis. You literally had these pharmaceutical companies saying that this magic pill was not addictive, and giving an insane amount of the actual medication, Oxycontin. And then when they found that it was addictive, or you were showing side effects of addiction, they would call it you were underdosed. And they would double the dose of the thing that you were showing side effects of addiction for. So, and literally a label was made. And how the pharmaceutical reps were selling it to the doctors was, this is non-addictive. It was an FDA-approved label that said this is not addictive. And they literally destroyed areas of the country. Yeah. And I think I forgot what the name of the show is, but it brilliantly kind of, and I already knew all of this stuff, but because of my personal experience, but it brilliantly kind of went through the chain of events. And then I kind of think to myself, should they be worried about profit, or should they be worried about solving a problem? And that's where I kind of get blurry with it, although I'm a capitalist and I think it's the best thing that we got right now.
Well, the whole thing of my opinion on that is that everything should be filtered with a certain percent of social responsibility, right? So that it doesn't become, the best use of this place is, let's say if we went full out and every green area in New York City, which is already to its limits, we went and said, this is better used if we sold it to an investor. They put a building here and we collect the taxes on it.
Right.
Yeah, that could be the best use of it. But we also need green areas for people to do recreational stuff, right?
Right.
And so that part of it kind of has to play with it, and there's some sections of the economy that needs to be more present.
Right.
Healthcare,
Right.
social services,
Right.
to the point.
But I also that now let's look at the other extreme. Let's say everything is free, and you get healthcare for free. Everything's for free. There's no profit motive at all.
Right.
There would be no innovation to make new medical achievements. Right. That's why you don't see medical achievements happening anywhere else except the United States, because the United States, there's a reason people come here
right.
from other countries. It's not like they're not smart and they lack the ability in other countries. No, they just lack the incentive to do anything. So they'll actually come here and make these wonderful freaking medical contraptions and medications and everything else because there is profit motive. So, and then on top of all of that, when you talk about health, so it's kind of the same thing, but separately, let's talk about health care being free. How long does it take to get a doctor's appointment in Venezuela? Colombia or wherever,
I was just come back from Brazil from visiting my family's my wife's family side, right? And I'm not so close to Venezuela right now, but I have first
hand experience in Brazil.
Because I heard it from two people that needed to get knee surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And what they told me is I could have surgery tomorrow if I go to a private hospital. Mm-hmm. If I have to go to a public hospital, I have to wait 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So, I mean, there has to be some balance between the people that are either...
And the argument for capitalism is if there were more private, the price would go down and people would have more options. It's the perfect example is LASIX. LASIX used to be super expensive. And then the insurance carrier said, it's cosmetic. It's not like we don't need to do it. Mm-hmm. So you had all these private companies basically just keep bidding the price down, and now you can get LASIX for a pretty reasonable price. Right. So
it goes to everything, even real estate. I'm going through right now to something that I never had firsthand, and I'm learning by doing it. I'm my first rental, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, I'm not going to be like everybody else. I'm going to open it to everybody, from private buyers to Section 8, everybody.
Right.
Right. The system does not help. In New York State is not helping entrepreneurs or business people. So in order for me to rent to anybody, I have to go through the town. But if I want to do Section 8 and I want to be socially responsible and have somebody that needs the housing, I have to go through the town. I have to get a permit.
Right.
No problem. It's a nominal fee. It's a small fee, $500. All right. But then they require you to go through a drafter or an architect to get plans so you can file the permit. That's going to cost a month worth of profit.
Right.
So that already is killing me.
Right.
And then, so I have somebody who's very motivated, very well qualified, that just so happened to have a voucher, and I cannot help that person because the system is putting all these roadblocks to make it difficult.
Right.
Then at the end of the day, there's no incentive for a business person to do their social help that they want to do.
I think a reasonable person that understands the thought process from both points of view could say, I can understand you, but I think this is better.
Right.
And as long as because I think the problem right now is neither side knows why it's just that's bad,
right?
Both sides. But I can see where both sides are coming from, and I just lean one way. But we, speaking of real estate, because we didn't talk about much real estate, which I actually enjoy because I talk about real estate way too much.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your experience. Tell me what you're doing today. Tell me what you're excited about.
I think today it's a great time to be in real estate. When I got in, it was a soft turn, starting to get hot. You can still get into real estate and learn, and it would be normal, a normal market.
Right.
And then the thing that we don't want to mention happens, and then it takes off.
Right.
Boom. And anybody with a heartbeat can sell a house just just like anybody with a heartbeat could buy a house in 2000,
Right.
right? So that happens. Now we're back to the people that actually take this as a craft and wanna, I don't want to sound too high up, but they want to honor the craft, and they understand that there is a service aspect to it. We're not in sales, we're service people. Actually went and learned and put time and try to understand how the systems work and try to give a better customer service.
Work on their skills.
And work on their skills. When business starts to dry up, those people still survive, and they're doing well because they actually have systems in place, and they have what they need in order to survive.
Right.
So even though the market may be doing, the market is very uncertain right now, and one week I put a reel that says the prices, look at the stats, prices are coming back. And then the next week rates go up, and then we don't get any action for a week.
Right.
And it's just the reality of it is people die all the time. People get job relocations all the time. People, have kids and, outgrow their house. There are many reasons why there has to be a real estate movement.
Right.
And there's always opportunity on every part of the cycle. If rates are down and prices are high, you can write out that 30-year mortgage, and it's basically free money.
Right.
But if rates are high and prices are coming down, you can buy a house and then take advantage.
Right.
You bite the bullet for a couple of months. If you have a great agent, you negotiate the price, so you benefit there. And then on the way up, you get appreciation, and then you refi, and you get your mortgage payment down. And then when you're going to sell the house, you make way better profits, if you want to look at it that way, as somebody who bought on the way up and rates were down.
Right.
So understanding the opportunity and be able to explain that opportunity it's important. And I think this is why it's a great time when the market is uncertain, because some people don't know, and the people that do understand it and can explain it. I've told 2 people this week, don't sell your house, is not the right time.
Right.
Do I want the business? When you have a 10 listing goal for, the end of next month,
right.
I need it. I want it.
What are you telling them? Are you telling them to wait till when?
Till there's more, because what they want to do is take their
equity and buy another house
and buy something else somewhere else. And I'm telling them right now, there isn't much equity. You bought a little while ago.
Right.
And
there's also not many houses.
Right.
So yeah. I mean, I think the point that you're trying to make, or you are making, is because of this uncertainty and volatility, let's call it, the people who are true professionals are able to rise to the top, and actually their value is clear.
Right.
Whereas 2 years ago, when that thing that we can't mention was going on, there wasn't, you could choose any real estate agent and their value was really not clear, because they were just real estate agents. Now there's like true professionals.
Right.
And
if
the
you
separation.
had a buyer, it was really the agent. All they had to do was convince the buyer to throw money at the problem. Right.
Right.
There was no skill involved.
Right.
Now, in order to negotiate a deal, you actually have to be skillful.
And you
have to have a mortgage broker there.
I speak to a lot of agents, and they say like how much they miss that, like to actually negotiate.
Of course.
Where it wasn't just best and final. Best and final.
Or handwrite an offer and send it on a napkin.
Right.
And if I'm on the listing side,
right,
and I get 2 offers, and one offer is very skillfully put together, and it's and I have a mortgage broker attached to it. I've seen the guy, I know this company, and then I get a handwritten on a napkin offer. I still have to present both.
Right.
But I also get the question from my seller, what should I do?
Right.
And the skillful agent has leverage.
Right.
Because I can go, this person, even though maybe less money, knows what they're doing.
Right.
And I may not have done a deal with that person forever.
Right.
But they're showing me their skills by the way they operate.
Yeah, I can tell by the way they speak. And the mortgage guy called me, and customers don't understand that side of it. Yeah. So I'm glad you said that. Yeah,
it's huge. That's I was trying to record a video before I came here about this. Watch this. So everybody's pet peeve is why realtors don't use their phone number when they're listing a property, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's true, but the more practical part of it is before I came in, my seller called me and said, I cannot show, I have an emergency, I have to go. Now I have to call a buyer's agent to let them know that their agent they can't show the house.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if the agent doesn't care, they put in their office phone number. I call the office, nobody answered.
Right.
So now the problem, I don't feel bad about the agent because that's the way they run their business.
Right.
But I feel bad about the buyer that's driving
That drove
from
up Queens.
expecting
Yeah.
to look at a property.
And nobody's going to answer the door.
And nobody's going to be there. It's not my fault. It's not my seller's fault.
Right.
You know, who's to blame? So there are some things that you learn from if you're paying attention and if you surround yourself with the right people.
Right.
I think we have a pretty good group of people
I agree.
between us that the great thing about us is that we're all in different companies.
Right.
We're all in different markets of the island and we overlap a little bit, but we all are very proud of the craft
Right.
and want to make it better. And so that iron sharpening iron happens and you get to share certain things and that's extremely helpful. So getting that relationship with all the agents,
Right.
Agents that are actually doing business,
Right.
not
And who care about the skills, like you said, like actually care about their craft.
right. They care about
That's what the industry is
improving
missing.
their craft so that they could give better customer service.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, we are looked at or we've had the industry has had a sales label to it
Right.
because we sell a product,
Right.
we sell a home, but in reality,
You're delivering
we
a service.
deliver a service that is a process, walking you through the process. The analogy that I give buyers and sellers is, and this may sound weird because it's impossible to do, but I say to them, we're in a car and you told me where you want to go and I have my hands on the wheel, but you have your foot and the gas and the brake.
Right.
We'll go as fast or as low
As you want.
because
But I'm
not
turning.
a pushy person. But I'm the one that's supposed to tell you, let's make a right, let's make a left. There's a hole coming up. Somebody's driving drunk.
Right.
Let's move 2 lanes to the right.
Right.
You know, instead of jerking the wheel and making decisions, you know, on the spur of the moment.
Right.
That's what being responsible for your craft is, to learn and to be able to explain somebody in simple ways why this is what they should be doing, even though it may be counterintuitive.
Let's end on that because that was a bomb. If poof. Luis, it's always a pleasure. I appreciate you coming on. You're a good friend of mine. Like I said, you really do this. So thank you for sitting down.
Thank you it was a great talk, man.